I'm a woman of Bangla descent. These are my traditional homelands where I come from, my yara, my country. So I'm here as a young Indigenous Aboriginal Bangla woman.
I've been living in the area for about 40 years, and I'd like to tell you a bit about Whalers Way. Situated at the southern tip of Eyre Peninsula, it's heritage listed and conservation zone, and it's home to many rare, threatened and endangered species, including the southern emu wren and the western whitbird.
It's probably some of the most spectacular coastline in all of Australia, let alone South Australia.
Whalers Way is one of the most beautiful coastlines that I've ever been to. It is something that is pristine and untouched, and is something that is not only enjoyed by locals, but is also enjoyed by travellers and visitors to the area. The Eyre Peninsula boasts ecotourism, which is something that I think we need to hold on to for future generations. Ecotourism means that we keep the environment as it is, protect it, conserve it, so that we can show future generations what it was and what it continues to be.
So our only water supply, public water supply, comes from the Yulee Basin, which runs from Coffin Bay across to Whalers Way, and this basin is already over-extracted and over-allocated, which is why we're now having to build a desalination plant to maintain the public water supply.
And so for us, this place is our, it's a big sacred place. It's a woman's place. So what they're doing, they're this rocket launch and that, they're disturbing everything.
I'm quite concerned about the impacts that rockets may have on this environment, not only for marine mammals but also for land-based species such as the southern emu wren and the white-breasted woodbird, and the sea eagle and other birds that use the side and of course any reptiles and plants that may be impacted. But in particular the long-nosed fur seal and the southern right whale and a whole suite of federally, nationally threatened species occur in this area.
So I'm very concerned about the endangered species that are found at Whalers Way, in particular the birds. I've been studying birds on Eyre Peninsula for about 35 years, and we know that there are eastern osprey, southern emu wrens, western whitbirds and white-bellied sea eagles all nesting in the area.
We can't sell out our environment for profit anymore. We need to make a stand, and we need to save the remaining wilderness. You know, there's so little of it left in this world, and you know, we're staring down the face of an extinction crisis. Our own too, you know, if we don't actually take action now. You know, the climate crisis around the world is crazy, and our governments need to actually step up and start implementing policies that protect what environment we have left, not selling it out to businesses who just want to make a profit.
Bushfire risk is just, it's crazy. Like that fact alone should have had this thing squashed from the start. They need 150,000 litres of water every launch, of which they then have to contain, which will then be contaminated. They haven't given a good answer on what happens to that water long term, so we've got potentially millions and millions of litres of water, of which we're already short of in this part of the coast, sitting around in a contaminated dam sort of quarry setup, or so they call. It won't be covered, so it's still going to seep and evaporate. Like the animals, how do you keep them out of it? Like drinking contaminated water?
They did not check the wind. They perhaps looked at a Bureau of Meteorology website which shows monthly mean wind speeds, and without going any further, they've assumed that because the model data supplied by the Bureau of Meteorology showed that at least during some months of the year, there's not much wind. I have analysed 3 hourly weather observations from Neptune Island and from Coles Point, and found that 18% of the time, day and night, all the 3-hourly observations would allow them to launch at wind speeds less than 10 knots. If we reduce that to daylight hours only, then it comes down to between 1.5% and 4.5% that they might have a launch window. They're wasting their time as well as ours, and the CFS's, and everybody's time. It's a 2-bit company that's wasting their time.
I just don't think we need to be doing this. Like, I can see what direction we need to be moving in for our children and their children to have a healthy planet, and this is clearly not part of it. You know, clearing another 60 acres of scrub and sending 30 odd rockets up into space a year, creating more emissions than Port Lincoln does already. It's just all a bit crazy all in the name of testing rockets for other countries. And I just feel like the Eyre Peninsula has been treated unfairly for a long time. You know, the government's been treating us like guinea pigs for decades, all the way back to Maralinga, where they allowed British and US Army to come in and drop atomic bombs all over the country there, you know, with no thought for the indigenous custodians of that land that were completely misplaced or killed. And now they're trying to dump all their nuclear waste out at Kimber. They wanted to test one of the deepest water wells for oil exploration ever in one of the most wild oceans in the world, and here we go again. But here again, where our Southern Launch wants to launch all these rockets in a pristine environment, absolutely beautiful part of the Eyre Peninsula, part of Australia, dense bushland, where there's so many endangered animals and so much potential for things to go catastrophically wrong.
The constraints that I'm concerned about is the type of rocket they're using, the size of rocket, and the fuels that they may be using.
Wales Way is not the right place for it. This was heritage listed 40 years ago for a reason. It's home to so many endangered animals. It's home to remnant native vegetation. It's never been cleared. It's never been burnt. And to risk this all so that a company which is not even based in Port Lincoln can make money is a travesty. As future generations will lose out, it actually begs belief that to think that a development like this can be allowed in a heritage listed conservation area like Whalers Way. It really saddens me.
Whalers Way is on the must-see destinations of the Eyre Peninsula. Tourism on the Eyre Peninsula brings in about $400 million a year, and that's forecasted to increase to $500 million a year over the next 10 years. So Whalers Way is something that we need to protect and keep pristine, and to encourage visitors to come and enjoy the ecotourism that the Eyre Peninsula boasts.
If a bushfire, or if the bush was to catch a light out there, it would be catastrophic. Why you would tempt fate more with a project like that is craziness. We should be investing those millions of dollars into things that's going to make our planet healthier, and this is where the magic's at.
The emission of soot from rockets in Whalers Way has a potential to change the air quality. 8 tonnes of soot will be released in 12 months if this is a fully functional facility. Particulate matter 2.5, or soot as I've been talking about, is recognised by the World Health Organization as a human health pollutant, and the levels of which will be released from rockets vastly exceed the levels of safe human consumption. This particulate matter will enter into the atmosphere and it will change the air that we breathe down Whalers Way.
Bushfire is a real threat in Port Lincoln. We're surrounded by a magnificent coastline and beautiful scrub that we all respect and love, and here's a company that thinks they can come over, have everything to gain, and we take their risk.
Southern Launch have already had a 3-tonne rocket catch fire on the launch pad, which did ignite the surrounding scrubland. They're looking at launching 100-tonne rockets. So you can imagine if a 100-tonne rocket actually did launch and was in the air and exploded, and burning debris went right through the scrubland, that would be devastating to the vegetation and the flora and fauna right through the area.
I'm really calling on the federal government and the state government to look at this further and ensure that the environmental impact statement and the referral to the EPBC Act, which is the Australian government, is looked at seriously and these species are given due consideration. They can't speak for themselves, it's up to us and the ministers concerned to make sure that they investigate this properly and make sure that any impacts are mitigated.
Now listen, if this toxic industrial facility goes ahead, it'll be the end of these species.
We don't want to look back in 30 years and think, what do we do? Our children will suffer for this.
We aren't going to be pushed around and sell out our coast and risk our coast for their profit. Yeah, we're just not for that. This is a lifestyle place, this coast, and people that live here love this coast, and I'm passionate about it, and I'm not going to go easy with them coming here and just doing as they please.
By launching rockets from Whalers Way, we instantly double the climatic carbon footprint of the Port Lincoln and the lower Eyre Peninsula.
Let's think about trying to save where we actually are from.
See, to us as Aboriginal people, we don't own the land owned us. So we're caretakers, and this is part of our roles and responsibility, is to take care of Mother Yara. And so if we don't, she's going to flick us off and get rid of us. This is of great significance what's down here, and it's time for humanity to all come together and protect, preserve and save what we have left here in this beautiful, beautiful world that we live in.